Do you have some time left today? Are things going all right? Well, then I hope you're feeling up to get down. It's time to hop in and fall out. Here's my attempt at playing as Yes Man in 4. Starting, of course, with the perfect reference material. We reconstructed the perfect synth form to take his place. Because if I'm being honest, it probably wouldn't have been hard to mod him in, but getting jump scared by this face every dialogue was great. We do what we were told by the wife we were assigned. I then made the mistake of prompting a new order. For those that don't know, Yes Man is a character from Fallout New Vegas. He doesn't really have the capacity to refuse orders from anyone. So here we are, contractually obligated to enjoy our coffee. Just the concept of it. The form. The function. The non-existent smell, but we can dream. We can behold. Luckily, Nora would eventually ask me to get the door, freeing me from the coffee-based prison. The following conversation would be full of Yes Man doing his best to be a beacon of sunshine and yeses wherever possible. Unfortunately, the player character does say it a lot less often than you'd think, even when given the specific option to say it. Truth be told, it's been long enough since I last played, and I never even finished 4, so not knowing how deep into this we could even realistically get, and having her pull me away from the TV that I was commanded to observe, was an early relief that we'd need to get anywhere. And I know what you might say about Vault-Tec, but I, for one, find their instructions that you can't meaningfully ignore in any capacity to be most helpful during stressful situations. And just look at the views they offer while the world is redecorating. And the accommodations! Second to none. This seat even has a show! Look at the drama! Look at the action! Afterwards, and having ignored some of the logistics of how we even got in here, we made an important discovery. This game has a lot of stairs. Trying to maneuver physics items to try to make ramps doesn't really work. In so many words, it just doesn't work. Yes Man, our beloved, only has a wheel. It is a very large wheel, but we'd unfortunately have to roll upstairs to proceed. I cannot stress enough, this game contains so many more than you'd think. We'd implement a pattern somewhat resembling this moving forward, because in so many words, not using stairs just was not happening. The speed at which I'd perform it would definitely shift a bit. Let's call it practice for my own sanity. We'd run into our next roadblock with a terminal that we needed to operate that says Overseer's Eyes Only. Lucky for us, I employed this strat called not looking at the screen while pressing buttons. Sure would be a shame if I were to miss any instructions on the following bits. Alternative answers could include that my face is a screen, therefore lacking eyes. I don't know. Pick your poison. We'd sprint past a perfectly reasonable number of roaches using only doors as a defense, because the thing about Yes Man, peaceful kind of guy. At least in his actions. There are some more murdery sorts of orders that come down from him, but who's gonna hear them right now? In definitely the first try, though, didn't take well over an hour total, we made it to the vault exit. The wasteland is filled to the brim with nightmare fuel to behold and people asking for things which gets old. Well, let's get into it. The plan was simple. Step 1, go find Codsworth to recruit to the cause. Step 2, he requires that I say no in some capacity. Technically not against the rules. Felt against the spirit of Yes Man. I know he does say that sometimes, but Also, recruiting him would apparently not be in my best interest. See, chat was doing a lot to help make sure things ran smoothly, because apparently being really bad at a game for long periods of time is painful to observe. So I instead picked up a book and walked over to meet Dogmeat. He would apparently be a loyal companion that would take me far. In practice, instead, he mostly served two purposes, one of the big ones being moral support across the open and empty wasteland, looking for a place to call progress. The balancing acts weren't OSHA compliant, but they were ocean defiant. Such journey would bring us to a courier of sorts. Perfect. After being told to play along, though, we were contractually obligated by our nature to book it. To the city made of diamond rolled a stranger one fine day. Hardly spoke to folks around him, though they had a lot to say. No one managed to ask his business, no one could quite make a quip, for the stranger there among him had a save quit on his hip. Save quit on his hip. Jokes aside, this game is a minefield, and systematically avoiding requests via meta-knowledge is invaluable. Before long, I found myself holding a delightful conversation with the assistant to an old detective. Nice fella, I hear. She is looking for some help with the current kidnapping situation. Get this, kid got kidnapped. He went and got kidnapped. I need to go rescue him so he can help search for a kidnapping victim. Frankly, I fail to see the issue with that. By this point, he's clearly an expert on the subject. On the way out, you can't really avoid things forever.
Read all about it. Institute replaces...
Noodles. We all eat them. We all love them. And Diamond City's Power Noodles has supplied this sustenance for the past 15 killed several people. After spending hours sharing experience the people of Diamond City assumed was reserved for members of the human race. They were wrong. Are we? Making my way to try to rescue him, things were not going lemon squeezy. Running past enemies doesn't work very well, nor does trying to have Dogmeat fight pretty much anything. Chat also got mad at me for letting Dogmeat get hurt, but I mean, it's not like I could really do much about it while keeping him with me. In so many words, like is often the case, I was here for a while just ramming my head against the same run-through to absolutely no success. We decided based on how things were going to lower the difficulty to normal rather than a step under survival, but unlike the higher difficulties name, we weren't doing that. Dogmeat still couldn't deal damage, I couldn't take it. We did technically make progress, but only sort of. Sure, I did get through, but at the cost of all of my healing without enough health to survive what would come next. And that's before worrying about recursive loops. Please take a number. Have a nice day. Please take a number. Have a nice day. Okay, so like, please take a number, have a nice day. But while please take a number, have a nice day, please take a number, have a nice day. I fully understand this. Please take a number, have a nice day. Please take a number, have a nice day. I would make the argument, please take a number, have a nice day. Please take a number, have a nice day. I would argue, please take a number, have a nice day, that if I'm going to have a nice day, after I take a number, of course, because I was asked to please take a number, have a nice day, please take a number, have a nice day, I would argue, if I'm going to follow the command of have a nice day, I need to override the door controls to have that nice day. I will, though, please take a number and have a nice day. Immediately after that, the jig was finally up. Nick Valentine, detective, would absolutely refuse to engage in jolly cooperation and just let me die. I desperately needed the help fighting my way out of here on account of, you know, things. So I reloaded to go recruit a new meat shield. I mean companion. I just had to run through a quick interview and she was pretty quickly on board with killing for me. Funny how that works. We did very briefly, so incredibly briefly, feel that we'd found a loophole to help immensely. The word mistaken gets thrown around a lot these days. Fun thing is, I could absolutely use Piper's help here, and she is nowhere to be seen. The AI in this game is very Bethesda, to put it lightly. Sometimes AI companions just don't show up to help. Sometimes when they do, they might as well not have. It's certainly a Bethesda game. We spent an age and a half waiting to see if she'd get back up after trying to 1v God knows how many. The answer was inconclusive. I did eventually manage to just kind of walk by the enemies in the area. I needed to hack a terminal to assist Nick, but as we all know, Yes Man is a master of system infiltration. This would pose no issue. I did need to relearn how to do these though, so I mean it posed no issue for him. Funny how it works when you play a character smarter than yourself. Nick, my boy, I require your assistance. How much, you ask? Yes. We'd unfortunately be more or less shooting our way out. Nick isn't very smart though. Maybe I'm the fool, but for a man that refuses to use melee weapons, I just get the feeling that the gun that he's using to bludgeon people might be better served, I don't know, shooting them instead? I did appreciate the ramp-like nature next to some stairs. Most places through the Commonwealth aren't exactly wheelchair accessible, but it's not called a wasteland for nothing. This place is a nightmare. Now, lowering the old suspension for a lower profile, you can ditch the rabble-rousers every once in a while if you're careful. You can theoretically experience a long enough lull in the goings-on that Nick will take it upon himself to let us progress the mission. Other times, he'd get really mad at the floor, or something, and refuse to let me move on with my life. So, thanks, Valentine. Very nice. We spent a while trying to just deal with this door, and fact is, it just doesn't want to function most of the time. So after running it back, I guess for long enough, the enemies became friends, as they should for everyone's best interest. I have no idea what's so deeply wrong with this coding. I don't think I could do better myself, but this makes Borderlands look well put together. Turns out there was only a double kidnapping situation, slightly less than estimated. The young lady's actually traveling with a gang-esque figure by the name of Skinny Malone. But when she asked a question, I had to answer. Yeah, I'm here to cause some commotion, and you'd be best served leaving. Till the count of 10 to vacate the premises. Yes! Unfortunately, the people I ran past earlier were still very trigger-happy, and the run was long. Survivable, but not on the first go about things. Next would come the old sit down with Nick, discussing battle plans, finding the missing child. I was really lucky to hear a need there, or the rest of the conversation between the three of us might have gotten really awkward. I am happy to read that as optional. I'd set back out with him in search of a man named Kellogg. I hear he has weird ideas as to the power of cornflakes, but frankly, I think he's just a prude. Unfortunately, though, we'd come upon a locked door to a rundown building that used to be his, and I found more often than not, despite having a rogue in my party, this goofy goober decided to not take proficiency in thieves' tools. If you were going to skip such an important skill for your backstory, you could have at least let the rest of us know, Nick. I left to go have a word with a guy who might have a key to the place at the request of my new partner.
No funny business around the mayor. Got it?
Oh, don't worry, buddy. Not being funny is literally my job. He didn't start all that helpful, but made the mistake of not telling me to shove off. So instead, I told him the truth, and the guy believed me. Well, I'm glad for his sake that I ain't lying, but damn, man, what are you doing? Then again, the man is holding a house in a tiny location for a man that hasn't been here in a long time, and that very well could be dead. Seems like a horrible allocation of resources in an apocalypse. You'd think he'd want some oversight involved or something, but nah. With key in hand, Nick wanted to get to the bottom of things by getting to the top of a table. We managed to find some information, and more importantly, a lot of free stuff in a little side room and I know this is a minor complaint in the grand scheme of things, but why is this room illuminated? How much power has the quote-unquote city been bleeding into this place? To what end?
Watch yourself around him, okay?
Oh, you don't know what you just did. I was trying to have Dogmeat track down the Pop-Tart-wielding maniac, but this game loves distractions.
Everything outside the wall ain't safe. That's just how it is.
I am a danger to myself and others! That's just how it is. Shortly after, we ran into a person looking for assistance. It definitely didn't scream ambush, because that'd be ridiculous. They'd never be able to ambush me that way. Or I guess they would me specifically, but I'm the exception, not the rule. While I wasn't sure how I was going to help them, they certainly helped me. Thank you to the random raider that suggested I leave the encounter. You're too kind. Along the trail, we had a moment that was so incredibly Bethesda in a positive way this time. For as easy it is to make fun of their games, there's something almost magical about following my dog through a wasteland to be attacked by a horde of blood bugs, a yaoguai, and while my companion is bleeding out into the soil, being saved by a giant death bot that showed up, killed everything, refused to elaborate, and left. In what other game? That's only half rhetorical. If you know another, I need the name. Now, sure, the path is easy to follow physically. It was far less so emotionally. Why can't I help the fellow robot? They're so friend-shaped, and just waiting to become my new companion/murder maker. We'd eventually be led to a building covered in turrets at the top, and, well, that was the least of our worries. Inside are a lot of really angry synths with lasers. Frankly, I think I should have a higher defense to these, but they hurt like the dickens. Fun fact, they can follow you out the back entrance. It's not a good thing exactly, but it's not a bad thing. See, Nick getting back up varies greatly. Sometimes he'll be in fighting order in moments, other times he just won't. Ever, as far as I can tell. Doors, though. Doors change that. By going in and out, you can get him back up and moving again. You know, contributing. Granted, maybe I shouldn't be complaining about that given how much I'm not doing. Now, if you really want him to do damage, you need to give him a real weapon. His is not great. Problem is, he does still consume ammo. Not just in general, but especially in the sense that he loves shooting walls for some reason. Nick, do you have any concept of how expensive you are? Your aim is literally costing me. Granted, it's mostly fueled by what I find on the corpses he makes, but it varies. Also, I was apparently a lot less consistent with noticing stairs than I thought, which does imply there are even more than I noticed, which this world is mostly stairs by volume. Despite his bumbling, he was eventually able to clear the building, at least enough to find a very conversational arm. Not messed up at all. Followed by finding a synth significantly more excited than I was about the elevator. And in spite of really wanting to ride along, they even stepped aside to let me go first. I, for one, commend the courteous nature of the group trying to decommission my friend and I. On the other side, you may read the subtitles telling me to leave, but I didn't hear him say it. He just didn't get a chance to get to that point in his dialogue. Therefore, I find it to not be canon. Kellogg, you're just a mite too slow on the draw, my boy. Just too slow on the draw. Oh, Jesus Christ, Nick. We did have a lot of enemies to deal with, not a ton of resources to do it with, but it certainly could have been worse. And how might things be made to go worse, exactly? Man, the fight out there sounds amazing.
A regrettable occurrence.
After long shootouts with very little success, draining me of my resources that I rarely found. Certainly not this. This is the opposite of that in every facet. Him telling me outright to turn around and leave, though, that takes some next level loopholing. Like the fact that I am turning around and leaving by going out the other side of the facility, the one in the direction he's in. It's not my fault he decided to tell me to turn around, specifically when I was facing in a way that would lead me to make that frankly gross misunderstanding of his intent. Did I line that up on purpose? Yes, of course. But he kept talking, and that's on him. Alternative answers could include, but are not limited to, interacting with a hacking terminal or save quitting to break this dialogue. Both are far less amusing to me specifically. As for the really angry man that wouldn't let us follow his instructions, we spent a fair bit trying to figure out how to go about fighting him. I ended up using this bed to wait a handful of times, trying to get Valentine to revive and help, but I mean, it varied in effectiveness, as with most of this game. And then after healing Nick with a stim pack, proving that it's okay for me to also heal with one, Kellogg did the same. I've played enough games to know we've met a DPS check, and those can be really tricky to navigate, especially with my companion being as hard to work with as he is. It's hard to say what the best strategy would be, but I did have one idea. Oh god!
Good job. Hurting anyone else. Take a look around. Get all the intel this place can hide.
Well, it worked. Somehow Nick got on top of the escape elevator before me. I guess we can chalk it up to radiation-induced teleportation powers, or maybe just being an absolutely ruthless monster. Who knows? He did try using them to style on the turbo racists who were just showing up. We met back up with Piper to report some findings, which would of course lead us to talk with this guy who was offering a great deal on insurance. We ended up having to hand over all of our belongings in exchange, which sounds pretty accurate to typical medical costs. I did get to recover that though after the provider met with a man who was very, very much against extortion, which sounds half accurate. Also, I know very little about Hancock, but I like him. Another plus, good neighbor houses Cleo. We wouldn't get well acquainted, but that's just fine with me. Here lies guns, bullets, and pointy things, all for sale at the right price and far from the eyes and ears of Diamond City citizens trying to sell me things. Like reading. Have you ever actually read that newspaper? Piper is many things, but a talented author is none of them. This would be where I'd be picking up gifts in the form of munitions for Nick from here on out, and where I dump a lot of junk for Caps. I'm sorry, Cleo. Healing items, my beloved. Oh, and she's here too. Hi. I'm gonna need you to do the brain dance mission from Cyberpunk, please. We're apparently gonna have to use 2 brains to do the super weird experimental... I don't know, the science involved ain't exactly as tight as the house. Well, this is also visually worse. I, for one, find it appalling that a mere half a decade and completely different art direction would result in such a stark contrast. Overall, though, it was just a little roll through a man's mind that somehow survived a nuke. All of this culminated in eventually finding out that the future tech group was really futuristic. Neato. Also, they figured out teleportation, which is, I guess, cool. I can't do it with enemies nearby, but it's not hard. Kinda weak, Institute. You gotta step up your game. I was told to look for a fella named Virgil. If I'm gonna face the storm that is approaching, I'll need to make sure my outward-facing shell's up to snuff. Luckily, Diamond City has a purveyor of such things. Unluckily, unfortunate even, Becky had to go and ask me such a thing. And it felt wrong to tell her I hadn't. It also felt wrong to lie, though. So what to do? Simple. I left and came back. It's foolproof. She didn't seem to believe me when I said I'd been here before, though, which feels weird. It's not a big building. She had to know. After was mostly a whole lot of rolling. Can't deny, these visuals are so friggin' cool. The contrast between the glowing sea and the rest of the Commonwealth is genuinely some incredible art direction. I know it's not groundbreaking, but I adore it. Along the path, I met a cult of irradiated folks who tried using radiation weapons against rad scorpions in the glowing sea. I don't know if I'm more confused that they survived these environmental conditions or just life in general. It's not just me, is it? Thinking maybe a standard gun would be better to use in the one place most resistant to your weapon of choice? It's like fighting the average cereal mascot with sugar. Sure, it's not good for them, but it's not likely to slow them down much either. Also, hot damn is the average cereal not a part of a balanced breakfast. Also, I'm not 100% sure what I was supposed to do for their quest, but with them dead, I could just head to Virgil. If Deathclaws could figure out gaping holes in the Earth's crust, we might have even fought the only one I saw the whole playthrough. Instead, I had a chat with Virgil about the logistics of getting to the Institute, and also being ordered to help him locate a cure for his current state of living. I was looking to find a person expressly built to be a literal killing machine. During the search, chat came out in force to lovingly bully me. On the one hand, I fail every day to express just how grateful I am to have such a kind community around me and the weird stuff I get up to. So kind, wholesome, and just all around great. On the other hand, rude! How dare you! After would come to a building full to the brim with enemies. I was not prepared for this. Not physically, not emotionally. Nick, on the other hand, he also wasn't, but damn, that man can move when he wants to. If he could keep that pace, I would be golden. But I am blue. So quickly he'd drain through the resources pumped his way. So quickly he'd fall, look away and back. The man who stood would stumble and fall in the interim, crumble under the pressure of a tower stretching toward the heavens, full of folks here trying to kill me while I try simply to kill the guy killing them. Why are we fighting again? Ah, yes man became dead man. At the risk of repeating myself, this man not only struggles to fight foes, but he fights foes that don't struggle against him in the slightest. Tight corridors and more munitions than he evidently has minutes left to live. Throughout the game, he took pretty much every opportunity to sit. Relatable, understandable, but we're not done, and this is an active war zone, Valentine. What are you doing? Okay, now shoot that man. Nick, you beautiful bastard! Oh, you have like 5 seconds of being cool, and then you go back to shit. After following the courser's path through hellfire and more hellfire, I burned so many stim packs to get here. I barely had enough to keep Nick fighting. Funny enough, we had a decent amount of ammo, but no way to spend it at the rate we were going. Multiple rocket launcher rounds were fired, but it's just not enough. Not nearly enough. The companion AI is bad at the best of times, and fighting an enemy with a staggering amount of health, solid damage output, and the ability to turn invisible is far from the best of times. Oftentimes, he would sit entirely still, not engaging in the fight at all, just burning healing items to do nothing. I was at a loss. I could get more healing, more ammo. I could go get supplies, but it'd mean reclimbing the tower, and I was down on caps the whole run. We really didn't have time spent farming. I was only getting experience from finding locations, finishing missions, and a very occasional skill check. I wasn't sure how long we'd be gone and how many enemies would have respawned by the time we got back. While I'm already not intimately familiar with these games, this is where I just didn't know what to do. And then I found this. I freed a random synth because she asked me to, admired the best part of this game, and after being directed far and wide, traveling any which way, wherever the yeses should take me, it brought me to the first major faction who'd start giving orders. Time to get railroaded. Wait, that doesn't sound right. Can I rewrite that line? So I was told to track them down following a trail of bricks and not bricks across a part of the game that runs like I often feel. Diet and exercise are one of those non-optional things, and I'm working on at least half of that. Self-betterment is a process of much repetition and sometimes regression. Don't waste time beating yourself up over it. That's energy you could put towards fixing the problem rather than feeling bad for being human. It's fine. It happens. We've got this. I made my way into an old church that was full of aggressive ghouls. It was the worst, with Nick constantly hitting what's left of the floor and or, of course, just refusing to function altogether. After shooting his way through a lot of it, we got one of my favorite line reads throughout.
It spins.
Despite myself, I managed to guess the password to the place in my first try because I wasn't allowed to write it down. But does this look like a face that'd forget? This is the order that'd fuel the next lot of hours. We'd be working with this person. Deacon is a chill individual, except when it comes to disguises. I met them once, the hair came off, and it never came back. That's not how disguises work, Deacon. I'd barely recognize you before. This changes nothing. I was given a password to pass along to an agent here, and instead of that, I gave him the Yes Man special. This was a gray area, given that I was given 2 specific conflicting instructions, but this is the one we went with given recency, and also, how could we not? Fighting through a compound with 1 companion is slow. Fighting with 2, far better. just as long as they're both actually involved. We were here to pick up a prototype, but far more importantly, they had a mini-nuke just lying around. These things are awesome. I went back to Virgil, who had us go back to Deacon, who had us lie along, build a teleporter, and we were told to look for a secret agent. On the other side, I found Sean, spent an unreasonable amount of time talking to scientists, which was significantly less fun than in real life, and I found our man on the other side. Nice fella. Not very effective at saving lives, but you could say the same about the railroad. Noble goals, but it seems like there's much good yet undone. We ran through a bunch of stuff for Virgil because I'm alone at the moment, and fighting was not advisable. And I had a chat with the walking plot twist that is father. Afterwards would come a chat and cure for our irradiated friend here. We went back to report in and came here to deal with some security details. Getting what we came for and getting out may have been precarious, but not impossible for Yes Man, master hacker at large. Bethesda, why? We'd head back to discuss battle plans with the synth that was all aboard the railroad. We just needed to deal with a lot of obstacles, including but not limited to some folks who were about to meet the last yes they'll ever hear. Literally anyone's orders, friendo. Nothing personal. Oh, nothing damage either. Lucky for me, I have some allies nearby who did all the heavy lifting here, because apparently using an energy pistol against the energy weapon group was ill-advised. I did the gamma ray thing, it's me! I was the red scorpion fool! I fought the average cereal mascot with sugar, like a goober! I found a suit of power armor that would very briefly join my arsenal. These things are hard to keep powered on account of me never having resources, but I thought it'd fit the aesthetic. I found that I kind of hate what it does to the HUD, but that's more of a me thing. I met up with the living weapon that picked a fight with the Brotherhood of Steel. Not just paladins, not just a vertibird, but one that could teleport. We were tasked with clearing out a bunch of well-armed bandits along a fortified hell pit. Listen, the AI in this game is bad, just in general. But everything just stopped functioning here. This is where strategy went to die and RNG took over. We reloaded this so many times, just hoping the game would let us progress, because between two different companions, both just wouldn't. They just wouldn't. They weren't the only thing, though. What the fuck is happening? Oh my god, game. What? What? Oh no, they're still going. No, Nick! Nick, come back! Nick!
Hey, over here.
The Courser, look at him go! He's so fast!
Damn, I do not like this.
Oh my god, what's happening? Game! Game, what's happening? Oh my god!
I think that's out of
Nick! Stop! I eventually managed to force Valentine across the walkways despite his pathing, and I want to clarify, it was absolutely in spite of his pathing. It was as if Todd Howard himself was shoving them around to make my life in particular harder, but I did it. I made it to see Nick still not... Can you just... You negative one line of code running, quarter-baked, beautifully voiced and written motherfucker! We got our target. Yay! Except we can't complete the mission because one of the mandatory enemies fell off the top of the area and ran for cover. I'm terrified by the concept of just how much time was spent watching the loading screens from running things back. Speaking of numbers though, did you know yes was said 568 times throughout the run? No, you didn't? Is that mayhap because you're not Ivy, who went through the VODs seeking out every one of them? Well, then you also wouldn't know that of every one dealt, I was responsible for 264. And my character only 10. Yes Man said it only 10 times. And chat contributed 245. The rest were assorted, and if you'd like to see the exact counts, then there's a Discord in the description you can check. At this point, I can't stop them, but I can direct you to a source of math-based madness. Ivy, why? On Father's orders, I robbed a man of all autonomy as a lesson in how dangerous people can be, and why that means we should continue to use and abuse an entirely manufactured slave race. Why does anyone defend this faction? We were told to report in, but not to not report in, so we did what we were told and got told to go kill a lot of people for the railroad via ambush. And might I just say, the coursers are not very good at their jobs. I at least got their help for more brotherhood, but it sure would have been nice if they lived up to their lore. Kinda with Nick on this though, standing around and letting them handle it is a solid strat. Right up until we need them to aggro. It took something like 6 shotgun rounds straight to the head to even make them mad. Where was this durability on the run up here? I didn't do much on my own, but I was under orders after all. After would come a chat where I wasn't thrown out for insubordination, straight up treachery. No, I was being promoted because logic is dead, and we have killed it. I left to visit Virgil like he asked and never returned due to, I think, being done with his stuff. You'd think he'd want the radiation cure away from the source of most radiation around here, but I'm no doctor. Right after, you might realize this isn't Nick. Yeah, instead we get Allie. Not a great ally. We were able to run away from some of the issues we'd face here, but this was a lot of brotherhood. Nick would even join us for bits of it. I don't know, we teleported here, and he comes and goes when he feels like it. I was here to get a piece of a reactor for the Institute, and we hadn't started the hard part yet. Rather, the slow part. I can basically just sit in this room indefinitely. I'm being irradiated, but I can clear it by pressing a button that cleans it out of my system somehow and opens the door. I can then shut the door, leaving an impenetrable barrier between me and Allie getting brutally beaten for, I don't know, probably at least an hour. I wasn't paying much attention to the game itself. Chat and I were mostly just talking about shows and whatnot. The difference between quest companions and real ones is that they tend to get back up more reliably. Sort of. It is Bethesda. If you're not familiar with this place, it is full of aggressive robots. If it had been Nick, we honestly would have been screwed, because these are mandatory kills. Nick pretended to be part of the team like I've been doing this whole time, and I went to deal with some bandits to talk a guy into joining the Institute. He was surrounded by them, which Nick struggled with of course, so I used the local robots as shields to get them to aggro. Bright side, it worked. Dark side, the robots weren't very happy about me doing that. But it worked. Things were going fairly smoothly until I got roped into a side quest. I was told to quell a little revolution inside the Institute. Apparently people were upset that someone incapable of saying no to anyone was about to be in charge of their life's work and also personal safety. I was told to do it peacefully though, so it was easy as telling them it was a bad idea and they should stop. Following orders sucks. We were required to give them disciplinary action at least. People of the Commonwealth. With all the money pouring in, give me 20 years and I'll reignite the high technology development sectors. 50 years and I'll have people in orbit. 100 years and my colony ships will be heading for the stars to search for planets unpolluted by the wrath and folly of a bygone generation. Wait, this is the wrong script. It says here, we still don't offer dental. Damn, these guys suck. We did it though, y'all. We got a reactor up and running. It'd be a shame if somebody came by later to blow this up. After the celebration, though, would come a direct order if I've ever heard one. My mission was simple. Kill the railroad. It doesn't really get much more specific. I didn't have a choice. Except to report what I was told back to Desdemona, who told me to stall them. Meaning I'll have to kill her later. Very specific phrasing, ma'am. Masterfully done. And I am required to secure them as well. Personally, I'd order me to not kill or betray me in any way, but that's just me. So, repeatedly, we'd enter and exit the area, getting Valentine into technically fighting order again and again. Brotherhood power armor in the rundown church is way worse than Ghoul's. This is the worst, and I hate it. He is so bad at killing things, and staying alive, and detective work. He can at least do some rather costly work with a shotgun as long as enemies are close enough to not be able to possibly find a worse path to shoot across. I want to say this took at least an hour, though. By all technicality, I'd have 3 people here with me. In actuality, I'd have 2. Tinker Tom went down really quickly and just stayed that way. Honestly fair, but this place took a while to push through. As for up top, I need you to just acknowledge that Yes Man obviously has biceps beyond belief, and this would explain... Just don't question this, please. Instead, why don't we question the fact that I got shot, like, maybe twice in this seat? This was not a fast fight, and I have no idea what the enemies were doing for all of it, but I mean, sure, I'll take it. So why go through all this effort to steal a vertibird? Simple. So I could walk through the Pridwin without talking to anyone, plant some charges, and fly away. That was one of the easiest stealth missions of my life. Alright, the Institute was stalled and the Brotherhood is down. It's time for me to kill you, attack the Institute. Got it. Or I guess it was time to do Nick's side mission. That was a great time for that. Can't lie, buddy. For as much strife as your AI has given me, as many times as I've wanted you dead, I adore both your writing and your voice work. I hate the AI, but I love the character. In terms of obligations, I had to report to lockup at one point. Nobody was there, so once I was done reporting, I just left. Otherwise, I just had to get information from across the world and escort Nick across the map after he stopped responding at all. That part did take a while. I've then accompanied Nick for one of his last missions, and tunnel vision in any run is strong, but genuinely, I quite liked this mission. I felt that it played with the available concepts nicely, and again, I enjoy the character. So much so that I'm not gonna spoil it here. Would recommend. Definitely nothing to do with how long the video already is. No relation whatsoever. In case the sarcasm isn't clear enough, that's a large part of the reason we're moving on. After all this time, though, it was the beginning of the end, and it all started off with a bang. Okay, 2 bangs. Fact of the matter, though, is, honestly, there's not much else to say. I had an endless supply of assistance from the weakest faction in the setting, ignoring, of course, the Minutemen that I literally never interacted with, I guess. Legend has it they're still fighting the same Deathclaw to this day. I cut off Father with a terminal, set a bomb on one of the most efficient power sources in the setting, did the right thing and said yes to a child, and ultimately defeated the Institute with the power of a nuke. Damn, war really doesn't change in this universe. But that would mark an end to the game. A journey in which, in all things, I'd say yes to the best of my ability. Bringing in a robot uprising to the not strip, and maybe finally giving me a reason to finish New Vegas. I've got to get around to that one of these days. But anyway, while I consider what that'll eventually look like, I hope you've enjoyed your time here. I'd like to thank my lovely channel members, as well as Twitch subscribers for your support. Additionally, I'd like to thank the incredible Salty Sphere, or just Salt, for helping me with the audio side of things. For those that don't know, an absolute ton of my time producing content is just spent editing audio together, cutting out bad takes, making sure things flow smoothly, and I can't thank them enough for making the work lighter. Every day and in every way, these become more of a collaborative effort to make happen, and it's still so surreal that it's not just my goofy self, so thank you. All of you. You probably know how to use social media, and hope that means I'll get to hear your thoughts now and on any future outings. Until then, remember to stay safe, spread some kindness in the world, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.
Ripped apart and put back together.
Bye-bye. Sorry, final orders.